Good evening and welcome everyone to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. 87 days till Christmas and probably 82 days till the start of winter. Because I know the snow lovers are counting it down. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by, speaking of Christmas, wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. And if you are a contractor, well, they're having an open house next Tuesday, October the 5th, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 164 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, on Long Island. And not just for the businesses on Long Island, but any of you in the tri-state area that are in this business or want to get into this business, you can give them a call and RSVP at 631-957-5106, or you could go to the website liholidaylighting.com. And of course, Halloween is coming up, and Christmas and all the holidays to follow. And they are getting ready. They got the garland in the other day. And as I said, 87 days till Santa arrives with all the presents. Wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini and Omni True Value Hardware. Because if you've got to shovel snow in order to, well, maybe get to your Christmas destination, or maybe you're doing it for others, you need rock salt, and there's a rock salt shortage, folks. But Omni will have the best prices in the tri-state area. Since they actually get their salt here, they mine it. It's mined here actually in parts of upstate New York, and they also have Pelado and Mag ice pellets and flakes, and anything else you need to get your house or your yard in tip-top shape. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. So here we are on this Wednesday night. I guess we should let everybody know we're not going to do a show tomorrow night since the weather is very quiet. We're going to take an extra day off. So I know I can hear the wailing and gnashing of teeth because of that. But,
oh dear me.
Yes.
Well, I tell you, we finally up here. We finally broke 50. We got to 47 this morning, and that was our first time in the 40s for this season, Joe. And it was certainly rather cool out there. And I suspect we'll be seeing a few more cool mornings before too much longer.
Have you been paying attention, by the way, to this volcanic eruption that's going on
the Canary Islands?
The Canary Islands. Tom Contino asks, is it true that the eruption of La Palma would produce a higher than normal albedo? The first one I read that I saw libido. No, it's albedo, causing the atmosphere. If only. Causing the atmosphere to cool. Well, some volcanic eruptions in the past, if they go up, if they go up into the troposphere and really get going and spread out, it has been known to happen and has happened in the past. Honestly, I haven't been following this closely, so I'm not aware that the eruption is going all the way up into the troposphere. But Mr. Rayo, you might know differently if you've been paying attention to it.
All I know is I've been hearing for years that when this one particular volcano really blows its top, it will send a tremendous landslide into the Atlantic Ocean, which in turn will trigger a gigantic tsunami, which will take 4 hours to cross the Atlantic Ocean, crash into the coastline of the eastern United States, and flood out everywhere from the rock-bound coast of Maine all the way down to Miami way.
Yeah,
have you ever heard of that?
No, I have heard, and not only have I heard of it, but when the eruption happened, there were on Facebook in particular, because we all know what a cesspool Facebook is. There were I got them twisted tonight. They had fake maps. People were putting up fake maps showing the extent of the coastline that was going to be under many feet of water from Florida all the way up to Maine. And posting things up about tsunami warnings and that sort of thing. And then, somebody had to come along and say, no, there's no tsunami warning, and no, there's no tsunami on the way to drown the entire East Coast.
You realize, of course, that this is, to the folks at the National Weather Service forecast office, that they're going to have to actually find a color to paint the map when they do issue finally a tsunami warning one of these fine days. They've got a color for every single thing on the, that you would think. Thunderstorm warnings, flood warning, blizzard warnings, this warning, that way. I wonder what they would use for a tsunami warning.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Tom Contino asked me, why do I consider Facebook a cesspool? Because it is. It's a cesspool. It's a cesspool of misinformation. It's a cesspool filled with stuff that's just pure BS. And it just can. And let's not even get into the anger and the rage that it drives. Okay, because that's what makes it. That's why they make why Facebook is $1 trillion company and makes so much money. They got your data, they know everything about you, and they're making money off of you. So yeah, it's a cesspool, and I'm on it. So, oh, good Lord.
We're both on it.
Yeah,
we're both on it, aren't we?
I'm wound up. I haven't even had a glass of wine yet. So we have a new tropical storm Victor. I just love, by the way, and I'll bring up the map of this. Here's a storm. The storm lovers are looking at this and saying to themselves, now, I'm not saying this. I'm saying that the storm lovers, because there are these, the storm lovers out there who, thrive on destruction. They're looking at this and saying, how is the storm starting out at 8.5 north? It's starting out at 8.5 north, and it's already moving west northwest. Well, because it is. It's going to be I think David Schwartz on the first comment put it well when he said, David Schwartz said that it's going to be a big time fish storm, because it is. It's just going to be that. It's at 8.3 north, 8.3 north, 25.5 west. Top winds are 40, moving west-northwest at 13, forecast to become a hurricane, and then once it gets, the southwest shear gets underway in a few days, it's going to get ripped back down to a tropical storm more than likely. So, yeah, it is. They count. I mean, it is a tropical storm when you look at it on the satellite. I didn't even pull up the satellite of it this evening. But when I looked at it earlier, it looked it's a big, fairly big system. It's very broad, so it's definitely a tropical storm. So we have one name to go before we've finished another list, and then we go to the alternate list. And I think the first name is Adria, Adria, I believe.
I've never met I presume that's a woman's name?
Yes.
I mean, have you ever met a woman named Adria?
No.
No, I've never have either.
No.
Well, that'll be
Adria. Maybe it's a short A, so maybe it's Adria. I don't know, but that's the first. That's the first name on the list. So that takes care of that one, and of course, Hurricane Sam, which has been around for the better part of a year now, is at 20.2. It's taken a week, Joe, for this thing to cross the Atlantic. It's endless. 20.2 north, 57.6 west. I keep thinking of Hurricane Faith back in the 60s that was around for almost a month. 20.2 finally broke north of 20 degrees north, 57.6 west. Still a Category 4 hurricane. Top winds are still 130 miles an hour, moving west-northwest at 9, and nothing has changed in the forecast with this for the most part for the last 3 days. It's recurving, passing east of Bermuda. It's going to get kicked in. Now, the one thing it does do for the Northeast, at least, or the Mid-Atlantic states, and maybe any rain will hold off until after the daytime Sunday, which is what I was thinking. But the fact that it is moving out south of Newfoundland means that the trough off the East Coast, which for the time being can't move, with the hurricane where it is out at 60, the trough at 70 can't do anything until the hurricane gets out of the way. And once that happens, the trough will start to lift out, and that will allow some moisture and kind of change the pattern a bit for next week, which looks a bit wetter than certainly wetter than this week.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the one thing that has changed with Sam is that it's no longer an storm on the prog chart.
Oh, on the long range, yeah. Eventually, it just becomes a storm.
Yes. And I'm sure that everybody, all our dear friends who are watching, and I think we actually have a couple of people who watch in the maritime provinces, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, or whatever. The folks, especially in Newfoundland, happy that Sam will not take a run at Cape Race or the Avalon Peninsula, as was the case with the prior tropical system that they had up there about a week or two ago. This storm looks like it most definitely will curve well away from Newfoundland, but again, like a gigantic agitator in the ocean, it will cause quite a bit of rough surf, swells, undertow for anyone who cares to dip their tootsies in the water anywhere from Florida all the way up to the coast of Maine. So, but the season is pretty well over, except if you're down across Florida or maybe coastal Georgia. So, anyone who does plan to take a dip over the next 4 or 5 days, be extra careful because Sam is out there.
Right. And by the way, I just want to calm Bill Rogers. I know he's not on the board tonight, but he's always worried about me. So if there ever was a tsunami, okay, that would wipe out the coastline of the eastern seaboard, including the Georgia coast, I am way inland. Okay,
Yes.
I'm well over 200 miles away from Savannah, so it's a long ways away. And I'm in a mountain, so I'm 2,200 feet up. So if the water level were to get all the way here to about 2,000 feet, I've got 200 extra feet to spare, and I'll have beachfront property. But I don't really think that that's a long-term concern. But I just want to allay Bill Rogers' fears just in case. In the meantime, Joe, looking at the satellite, another delightful day in the Northeast. Looks like there's a little upper trough dropping down from upstate New York with some clouds that are moving southward, but I don't think that's going to amount to much. And we've got a little bit of Gulf moisture and some rain in the southern and central plains, which was well advertised by WPC. There's no severe weather being indicated by SPC, which is a good thing. Clouds streaming up from the southwest now up into Montana and points east, and we've got moisture coming in from the Pacific Northwest. But in between all of those little puzzle pieces, the weather is nice, and much of the Mid-Atlantic, from southern areas of the Northeast to the southeastern part of the U.S., it was another delightful day with blue skies and sunshine, and low humidity, and temperatures in the 60s for you and in the 70s for me.
Well, we have a special update here on the chat board from my wife of 37 years, Miss Rayo, Mrs. Rayo. She was talking about
she's discussing
her long range.
Yeah, she's discussing your nuts. You knew I was going to go down that road. Apparently,
I'm not saying anything now for the rest of the. I'm not saying anything now for the remainder of this show.
Well, apparently, when your nuts are big, nuts are big, and those.
Would you like to get thrown off? Would you like to get us thrown off Facebook now?
No, I know, but we're not on Facebook, but we are in a cesspool at the moment. I got that. Go on.
She was talking with Tom Contino, and she mentions that when and of course we don't have on our property, we don't have a hickory tree. I think that's one of the trees that we lost a few years ago to the gypsy moth, those little rascals. But in those years that we had a hickory tree, or the walnuts. And we do have walnuts. So we have a tree that drops walnuts and acorns and berry type trees when they're plentiful and have a large harvest. According to my wife, she has found from her study of this type of phenomena over the last almost 20 years that this usually correlates to some big, heavy snowstorms during the winter. And
Now I want you
Contino
to
says,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Tom Contino says, Renata, I pray that you are correct. So we know at least that Tom is a snow weenie.
Well, now if that theory works by you, I'll be curious to see if that works by me, because I have hickory trees, and the nuts are all over, not only all over the place, but I also have a metal roof. So when they fall off the tree, it sounds like I got baseballs, hitting my roof all day long.
Yeah.
Now again, I also, interestingly enough, and this is one of those things, by the way, Joe. Every year you can find somebody that says, the squirrels are all busy gathering, their nuts for the winter, and the caterpillar and the woolly, all these things about whether they signal a winter or not, an active winter or not. Remember, it's always, everybody's referencing the one point that they happen to be standing on. But I just happen to, since we're on the subject, the squirrels here they totally disappeared already. So I don't know if that means anything. For the last 2 weeks, I've hardly seen any squirrels at all. And as I said, I got these hickory nuts hitting my roof, sounding like baseballs all day long.
Well, now that you've heard from Mrs. Rayo, I will tell you that most definitely we probably will have a very rough winter ahead of us from my observation of watching the squirrels. Just this past weekend, I happened to see a squirrel burying canned goods in my backyard.
Yeah.
Now, if that doesn't tell you something about the upcoming winter, folks, nothing will.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you got exactly, either that or they're on DoorDash getting takeout or Grubhub. Mike McGuire.
And yes, Tom Contino, yes, he puts on the chat board. Joe Rayo said he hates snow. Yes, Joe Rayo and let me point out, Joe Rayo was one of these big snow lovers going back into the 70s and 80s. I mean, I when the wintertime came, I was right there with my snow cap on in the weather center, plotting sectionals and hoping and waiting for some kind of major coastal system to run into a large mass of cold air, massive cold air, warm air advection overrunning the top of the cold air to produce, maybe 6, 12, 18, dare I say, a couple of times it did happen, 20-plus-inch snowfalls. But in the years that have followed, since I've gotten married and since I actually have bought a couple of homes, especially this home, with a long driveway, Joe, and when it does snow to even a small degree, guess who has to go out there with the snow shovel or the snow blower to get rid of all of that white stuff? So if we can have a winter like we had a couple of years ago, where we had maybe a grand total of 10 inches, maybe a little more for the whole winter up here, if we could have another one of those winters, I would love it. Sorry about that, snow lovers, but that's the way I feel now. I've had my full share of snow, and you're talking to somebody who at one time actually considered for a few short moments moving up and living in Barnes Corners, New York, on the edge of the
Joseph. Ooh. There you go.
So Tom, good luck. Good luck with your snow.
Well, the thing is, it would have been nice when we were young to have these 20-inch snowstorms. But we didn't have any responsibilities. But you know what, Joe? We didn't have 20-inch snowstorms when we were.
We didn't have snow.
We didn't have snow.
We didn't have blizzards. Yeah, exactly.
Can't hear who?
Did you hear that?
Well, I heard her.
I heard her. I heard me. He says he said one of us or both of us.
They're not.
Although I did see the
No,
wheel of death.
there
I did
was,
see the wheel of death.
we did take an internet hit of some kind somewhere. I don't know if I did or if you did on your end, because your audio disappeared and you froze, but I didn't. I didn't. So, but I think we're back now. So, in case you didn't hear that, we didn't have snow when we were young and we were kids.
Which is true. I still remember what it was winter 72, 73. It was what 2.8 inches in Central Park, the all-time lowest snow amount for a single season.
What about just the fact that after the 95, 96 winter, the next 4 winters all produced I think 10 inches or less, at least in New York City anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and then of course,
Steve Lapointe, thank you.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, Steve Lapointe, thank you for hitting super chats. And he says, I hate snow too, Rayo. We old guys, we have to stick together. Hit thumbs up under the video. Yeah, go right ahead and do that if you want.
Absolutely. Hit the like button. I'll be curious to see. I would like to see one nice snowfall here. By nice, I will say, a 4 to 6 inch snowfall this winter, just to see how it looks in this area. Because last winter we had a couple of instances where we had a little snow here, but it wasn't much enough. Coating on the ground, maybe a half an inch on one occasion. But before I was here, Christmas Eve, which we all know now is we have thunderstorms in New York City on Christmas Eve now because that's what happened last year.
Right.
But down here, on the bottom of that trough last year that was up and down the East Coast, while it was in the 60s up in the Northeast, that's where I was at the time. It was snowing here, and they had a white Christmas. They had half a foot or more everywhere here in North Georgia. So I guess maybe that was just an announcement that I was moving down, which I did a couple of weeks later. But no matter, we got to get there first, and there's a long way to go since we still have a whole day left in September and the entire months of October and November to push along. Meanwhile, on the radar tonight, we do have some showers up in Maine. Maine and in parts of upstate New York. I think that's due to the upper trough, and that's offshore and a little short wave that's dropping southward. And of course, we pointed out on the satellite that we had some clouds. Also seeing some showers and a couple of heavier downpours in parts of Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southeastern Louisiana, and then it kind of arcs back to the South Texas coast. A few showers and storms west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. Some heavy downpours and some thunderstorms up in the Dakotas and also back into parts of Nebraska, and some showers in eastern Montana, then a bit of a break. And then up in the Pacific Northwest, as another one of these weather systems moves in there, they're getting their fair share of rainfall. And on WPC's rainfall forecast map, they have now, because this goes to next Wednesday night, a half to 3/4 of an inch in some places in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, down even into my neck of the woods, 3/4 of an inch to an inch or so being indicated. Still some heavy rains throughout much of central Texas, northeastward into Arkansas, anywhere from an inch and a half to as much as 3 or 4 inches being forecast for the next 7 days. And that extends up into the central plains and even into the middle Mississippi Valley. See some 7-day rainfall amounts on the order of an inch and a quarter, inch and a half, and some heavy rains up in the state of Washington and in western Washington of 3 to 5 inches or more. And those run up the coast, the west coast of Canada there, which is what usually happens. And there is moisture being indicated, by the way, in the Bahamas, because the models are indicating lower than normal pressures there for the first part of next week, particularly Tuesday and into Wednesday. So we'll have to watch to see if something comes out of there with the changes that are going to be going on in the upper air as we go through the weekend.
Now, you may be interested to know, Joe, maybe you are or not, that AccuWeather has come out with their official. Now, this is interesting because I've been, watching the Weather and Show View for a very long time, and I don't ever remember AccuWeather coming out with such a, they say, our official winter forecast. And they make it sound like they made this forecast on the same level as, let's say, NOAA or the Farmer's Almanac for many, many years. Frankly, I don't remember ever hearing an official forecast for the United States for the upcoming winter season, but they've done that. They made that announcement today. Their official forecast, their senior long-range forecaster, Paul Pastelok, I hope I pronounced that correctly, making the annual prediction for upcoming winter season, giving people all across the country time to prepare for what is expected to be a busy winter. Well, when was the last time you ever heard a long-range winter forecast that was not going to be busy?
They were all busy winters.
I've every time I hear one of these winter forecasts, they always say the same thing. It's going to be a busy. I'm yet to hear a forecast for winter that says it's going to be above normal. We're going to have warm temperatures, not much in the way of snow and everything. It's always the same thing. It always seems to be a busy winter. Now, for us here in the Northeast, get your pad and pencils out. Residents in the Northeastern United States may want to dig out their winter coats sooner rather than later this year, Joe, as winter weather could make an early arrival across the region. According to Paul Pastelok, this winter is going to be a colder one, at least for the interior sections of the Appalachians to the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. Last winter temperatures were right around normal, but this year likely to average 1 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. The first waves of cold are anticipated to chill the Northeast in November, when Pastelok says there could be a couple of rounds of cold weather and snow, particularly in the interior Northeast. The chance of a plowable snow also anticipated to start early in the season with the early waves of cold air. So there you go, folks. November,
I have
we start
no
with the
problem.
cold and the snow.
Yeah, from what I've been seeing, and this tendency for the NAO to pop up from time to time, going back to going back to the spring and through the summer, and just in the last week or so, if that holds, I don't have a particular problem with the idea of a front end winter. A front end loaded winter.
The severity and frequency of the snow and the cold air will let up a bit by mid-December, and then will return with a vengeance.
What time
in January?
What time in mid-December?
I don't know.
I got to get my hair done. I need to know. These are important things. I have to plan this ahead.
He claims that the Pastelok says January will be the month that stands out in the Northeast. Heating bills could hit their highest point in January. Well, of course. What's the coldest month of the year? January. Of course.
And I will say this along those lines. I watch markets during the day, so most people probably don't, but I watch the markets during the day, and if you are a regular market watcher, you cannot have missed out on the fact that there has been an absolutely roaring, raging rally going on in natural gas. Natural gas prices have doubled. They've gone from $3 per whatever thermal unit, however they measure it, to almost $6 in a very, very short period of time. And I was listening to a trader this morning who was talking about the fact that if it becomes apparent that there is going to be a front-end loaded winter, then there is going to be a problem with getting enough natural gas supply, and that is going to drive prices even higher. So if it does materialize, and you have gas heating, and you might have a problem. It may very well be an expensive winter season if that's the case. So just wanted to put that out there. That's what I heard.
They do mention that. They do mention that in this AccuWeather forecast. The price for natural gas as of late September was up 180% compared to 12 months ago. And at the time of this report, natural gas prices were at their highest since early 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And he echoes exactly what you just said, Joe, that this is going to be a tough time if you are somebody who has or relies on natural gas. Well, anyway, that is it. It looks like it's going to be virtually the end of the world or the end of something. The winter is going to be a hard one and a terrible one, and it's going to start as soon as November arrives. So you heard it first. That from AccuWeather. And when we get to the end of the winter season, nobody's going to remember the AccuWeather forecast, nor the Farmer's Almanac, or anybody else, because as I always said, all these forecasts are always forgotten by the time we get to
Oh, yeah, but
the
they're
end of the
always
winter
the
season.
same. Nobody's going to click on a foot. To answer your question from earlier, Joe, no one's going to click. Listen, we could conduct an experiment. I could write up a winter forecast that says that, we're going to get minimal cold, no snow. They say it's because of the La Nina, which is going to be raging, and put it out there. Not only will I would get far fewer, and at the same time, if I put up a forecast that said that the Northeast was going to get absolutely hammered by snow from November 1st to March 30th, snow and cold nonstop, no breaks, nothing. The warmer article would get not only fewer links, but I would probably be besieged by hateful email from snow weenies, kind of lining up with the axe, ready to come after me for even so much as even suggesting such blasphemy. Because as you know, all winters in the Northeast are cold and snowy. So Tom Contino asks, why don't I just cave in and do a winter forecast? And my answer to that is twofold. I tried back a few years ago. I'm sorry, I just cannot get my head around it. People that get into this the long range stuff, it's highly technical. They look at all these things, and levels of the atmosphere and the QBD and the RCA and all these any acronym you could throw out. I'm not interested in that. It does nothing for me. So that leads me to the second reason why I don't do it is because I don't want to.
Now I got a laugh here from David Carter. David Carter, who on the chat board says AccuWeather is much more accurate and science-based than, say, the old Farmer's Almanac, in my opinion, IMO. Well, I have some news. I have some news for you, David. For many years, the forecast for the old Farmer's Almanac was done by a gentleman who was supposedly a research physicist at NASA with solar inclinations, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Richard Head. And I guess Dr. Head either passed away or retired. And guess who took over the old Farmer's Almanac forecast? It was one of the meteorologists from AccuWeather. I think it was Mike Steinberg.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Mike Steinberg who is the behind-the-scenes person behind the old Farmer's Almanac forecast. So you see, what you just said and what you just posted makes absolutely no sense, because AccuWeather is not only doing their own forecast, but it probably is tied in with the forecasts that were done for the old Farmer's Almanac by Mike Steinberg. So we have Paul Pastelok doing the long-range forecast that was just put out today, but Mike Steinberg of AccuWeather is also responsible for so they're joined together at the hip. And yes, there is a certain amount of science and whatever that goes into the old Farmer's Almanac forecast, as opposed to the way it might have been done prior to a few years back. Although Dr. Head, Richard Head, he supposedly was a research scientist and a physicist and studied the sun and solar cycles and whatever. So it's not just a matter of looking at how many eggs the chickens laid, or looking at the sky and seeing how many wispy clouds there were. Those might have been the way that the almanac had predicted the weather years ago, decades ago. But there is some certain amount of science put into it, and I guess the AccuWeather forecast, again, going hand in hand with what the forecast is for the old Farmer's Almanac. And there you go, Joe. Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
They're fun to read, and I get it. Everybody's excited, waiting for another winter season to come along, and I understand it. I'm a snow lover. I enjoy it. I love watching snowfall, and I love trying to forecast my way through it and trying to figure things out. And uh, even if it does come
And
occasionally with some pain, from some
and
people, from meteorological
and
morons that are out there. But
and
I get it.
Tom Cortino,
What?
he puts on the chat board, Joe, Richard Head, LMAO. I know what you're thinking about,
Oh yeah.
Contino.
Well,
Yes,
first
yes,
the conversation about nuts. Now we're going on to, we're going on to you're
yeah.
going on to this show has gone downhill from the start, and it hasn't hit bottom yet. It has.
No wonder we're taking tomorrow off.
Yes, that's right. We are taking. So, in case you missed it at the beginning of the program, Joe and I are taking tomorrow off so that we can have our mouths washed out with soap, and then we can resume normal family viewing coverage on Sunday. So, taking a look at the upper air as we go into the weekend and beyond. Of course, the deep trough in the east and the blocking, the blocking high or the blocking anomaly here, these higher than normal heights and pressures that are sitting between Greenland and Labrador. Here's your upper low over Maine and New Brunswick, the trough that extends south. Of course, the never ever ending Hurricane Sam that is going to be hopefully soon accelerating northward and northeastward. Although depending on what model you look at, it may not do that. In fact, if this is right, the trough pulls it up, Joe, but it never absorbs it, so it starts to kick it out to the east, and then it just kind of loses it at some point out there. At least on the old run, it did. Now it wants to carry it northeastward, so hopefully it'll go away. But more importantly, if you take a look at what happens after the trough lifts out in the east, we've got another trough at shortwave, and once again, the model's trying to form a trough here from Michigan down to the Gulf Coast. Now, this in all seriousness, let's hope we don't have any kind of tropical system forming down here in the Bahamas or in the Northwest Caribbean, because with that kind of southerly flow, it would probably come straight up as if that trough winds up holding together. So for now, there isn't much concern here. But anytime you see something like this at this time of year, you have to at least remember that this is the upper air setup that you don't want if you want to avoid a tropical storm moving up the East Coast. So hopefully we won't have anything to deal with. That eventually just kind of lifts up and out, and then as the weather systems move along, looks like we get into a bit of a ridge here in the east toward the end of the forecast period with troughing in the plains and up and down from Alaska down into the northern plains and the northern Rockies. I would say that this probably favors some kind of early snowfall, perhaps in that region, if that trough winds up materializing in the west. So we might start to see, a few of the usual places up in the northwestern quarter of the country putting down their first accumulating snows of the season. And I guess the big question here with respect to the weekend, because we know tomorrow's fine, but let's bring up the surface map here. I'll put the whole U.S. up. La 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 la. All right, I got to go back to the 6 hour. Let it reload. So here we go, and you're troughing there, moving through New England with some showers overnight and on Thursday. Then you can see Sam just kind of pokes its western edge, pokes on the lower right there for a brief moment before it moves away. And Joe, I think we're fine here, certainly through Saturday. There's a bit of a warm front that's to our north with some showers way up in upstate New York and Vermont. The Sunday system, it's hard to tell with this. I mean, it looks like there's some showers that are coming up through western New York and western PA, sort of a narrow band, and suddenly all of New England is covered in rain Sunday afternoon. That's a bit of a change from what we had showing earlier, that maybe the showers would hold off until Sunday night or on Monday. And then, with this trough setting up to the west, you get showery rains. And here's where there's a little impulse here, something that comes out of the Northwest Caribbean, a little low and tropical moisture that shoots up the East Coast for the middle part of next week. But we'll deal with that when we come back to this on Sunday when we do our next show.
Okay, well, it's Sunday. Yeah, that's right. Boy, we're gonna be away for a little while, aren't we?
Oh, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So, there's my snow. There's a snow on Columbus Day, the traditional Columbus Day. A low in western Nebraska and some snows up in parts of Wyoming and Montana and into western South Dakota as the low goes northeast on up east of Lake Winnipeg. We'll see. And then there's some kind of low in the Gulf of Mexico that comes out of the Bahamas and goes into the Gulf of Mexico.
Do you want to mention the forecast that we were looking at what about a week or 10 days ago for the middle part of October for this part of the country regarding snow? You remember that or?
Oh, that was the GFS, like the 600 and something hour. It was more toward the end of the month, I thought, than the beginning. I don't have the map. I didn't save it.
No, I didn't either. But I was just like, why? I thought it was like the 18th of October.
Was it the 18th?
Something like that.
Oh, well.
I think so.
What are the chances
and they had what? Like,
what are the odds of that verifying?
You know, after what happened to me up here 10 years ago, a few days before Halloween, I mean, 10 years ago, I would have said impossible, can't happen, or whatever. Now I'm not too sure anymore. But I don't think we have to worry about any of that stuff for a while.
Yeah, those are rare events, thankfully.
Yes.
All right, let's do Briller Jeopardy and wrap it up for tonight. So tonight, Joe, there were only 4 tropical systems in the Atlantic whose names were retired beginning with the letter L.
L?
L.
L?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I'll help you. Well, one was last year.
Well, the only one that stands out in my mind is Laura.
Laura last year, yes. Yeah, so Laura's retired.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
the other ones, you know what? The other ones I've completely forgotten about. I have no recollection of these. Anyone would venture any guesses?
Renata and I once went to Montauk Point, and I seem to remember the waters were really rough. It was being caused by an offshore storm, but I don't know whether or not this storm had its name retired. But I think the storm in question when we went to Montauk was Luis.
And you are correct, Mr. Rayo.
Yes.
I'm doing a quick Wikipedia here on Luis. By the way, while I'm waiting for the page to come up, Siler hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Siler. Most appreciated. Thank you. Hurricane Luis was a long-lived, powerful Category 4, strongest hurricane to make landfall, and the third most intense hurricane recorded in the 1995 Atlantic hurricane season. The storm, along with Umberto, Iris, and Karen, was one of 4 simultaneous tropical systems in the Atlantic basin. So Luis could, now I'm starting to get faint memories are coming back on this, Joe. Extensive damage to Antigua, St. Bartholomew, the island of St. Martin, Anguilla, and Bermuda. The storm accounted for 19 confirmed deaths, 20,000 homeless, mostly in Anguilla, Barbuda, and St. Martin, and affected more than 70,000 people. Total damage was estimated at $3.3 billion across the affected areas. So Luis was...
I also remember, now, did that storm come anywhere near Puerto Rico?
It passed just northeast of the northeastern tip of Puerto Rico.
Okay. I remember back then in 1995, I was doing 1010 Winds, WINS radio.
Here's the
out of
track
my
of it,
house.
by the way. I'll put it up on the screen. Go ahead.
I was doing 1010 Winds out of my house. Believe it or not, we had a special hookup, a special data line that ran from my house, which was then in Levittown, to the WINS studios, 888 7th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. And when you're doing the weather for a big outlet like 1010 Winds, you have to be ready at all hours of the day or night. I'm upstairs. I was doing the morning shift, so I would have to be up and ready to go with my first weathercast just after 5 o'clock in the morning. It's like 2 a.m. The phone rings, and Renata says, "Joe, I think your office phone upstairs is ringing." Why the hell would it be ringing at 2 o'clock in the morning? I don't. So I go upstairs, I pick up the phone, and it's the newsroom, and they said, "We want you to do a live weather hit in a few minutes." And I said, "What are you talking about? What's going on?" And he said, "Well, we just got the latest about Hurricane Luis and it's relative to Puerto Rico, and it looked, we want to do a live hit because it looks like it's going to be passing close to Puerto Rico." 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had to do a live weather hit at on 1010 Winds. And I remember now, it as I said, it's all coming back to me now. It was Hurricane Luis, and eventually Luis made that big curve, as you just pointed out on you showed the path close enough so that, and it was powerful enough so that it churned the waters up. And I think if some days later, we took a trip out to Montauk Point and watched as the waves were crashing up against the shoreline. We actually went up into the lighthouse at Montauk Point. So yes, I do remember Luis, and thank God they retired Luis's name, because I don't want to hear from Luis anymore.
Yeah. Now, can you think of the other any of the other ones?
Joe, the only other L storm that stands out in my memory, and I frankly don't think that this was the one. If it was retired, it would have to be a different one. But I remember the Christmas Eve, I think in the 1980s or early 90s. Speaking of Puerto Rico, Christmas, jingle bells, jingle bells. There was a hurricane that formed and affected Puerto Rico, and that was the L storm that year, and that was Lily.
I believe.
But I don't think that was retired.
Let me take a look. Just a moment. I got to go back. Let me do a search here.
And no, Tom Cartino, no, I did not do the weather on 1010 Winds with Dr. Joe Sobel. In fact, if anything, Dr. Joe Sobel probably hated my guts, because Dr. Joe Sobel at that time worked for, and probably, I think, I'm not sure if he's retired now, Joe. I know Elliot Abrams is, and I'm not sure if Joe Sobel is still working, but they were working at AccuWeather, and AccuWeather at the time was doing 1010 Winds. They're doing them now, but there was a 2-year period when they decided that they wanted to pass on AccuWeather's bid to do 1010 Winds, and they ended up doing the weather with a local outlet here in the tri-state area, and I was one of the voices for that local outlet. So that's how I ended up doing 1010 Winds for a couple of years. So I didn't do it with Joe Sobel, because he was working for a completely different company. And I might also add, I have the highest regard for people like Joe Sobel, Dr. Joe Sobel, and Elliot Abrams, who retired after 50 years in the business, the legendary Elliot Abrams, I think a couple of years ago. But those are two separate entities.
Right.
Did you look up Lily and find out if it was Lily, or
right name, wrong year? This was a hurricane. This Hurricane Lily was actually in 2002. Was the second costliest, deadliest, and strongest hurricane of the 2002 season, only surpassed by Hurricane Isidore, which affected the same areas around a week before Lily. Lily was the 12th named storm, 4th hurricane, and 2nd major. Storm developed as a tropical disturbance in the open Atlantic on September 21st. Imagine that, Joe, September 21st, and they were only up to the L storm. It continued westward,
Yeah.
affecting the Lesser Antilles as a tropical storm, then entered the Caribbean. As it moved west, the storm dissipated while being affected by wind shear south of Cuba, then regenerated when the shear disappeared and turned to the northwest and strengthened to a Cat 2 on October 1st. Lily made 2 landfalls in western Cuba and then entered the Gulf of Mexico. The hurricane rapidly strengthened, reaching Category 4 strength that afternoon, and it weakened rapidly thereafter and hit Louisiana as a Category 1 on October 3rd. So I'm assuming that it was this Lily that was retired. Let me just see if it says here if the name was retired. Impact, Haiti, Cuba, blah, blah, Louisiana, aftermath. Retirement. The name Lily was retired in the spring of 2002 because of its destruction and the deadly Caribbean track, and will never be used again in the Atlantic Basin.
Well, but that's definitely not the Lily I remember from many years earlier that was formed and developed on Christmas, whatever year it was.
Right.
I guess if you go back in 6-year increments, it must have been. It was in the It was in the 80s or 90s. I don't remember. But
well,
anyway,
the last remaining L storm, which is one that I completely forgot about, but was very unusual, was in 19. Wait, hold on. Let's see. The 4th of November doesn't say what year. Hold on a second. I'm trying to find the year. Oh, 1999. November 13th, 1999, formed November 13th, 1999, and dissipated November 23rd, 1999. And that was Hurricane Lenny. And
Lenny.
yes. And what was unusual, and it got the nickname, it was called Wrong Way Lenny. Because what was unusual about this particular storm, and I'll bring the track up on the screen, okay? By the way, this is all courtesy of Wikipedia. Now, if you look at this track, you would, when it comes up, Joe, your instinct is to want you to look at it from east to west, because normally storms that are at that latitude move from east to west. But this was called Wrong Way Lenny because it formed actually in the Western Caribbean and moved east. And yeah, exactly. I forgot about this one. But Lenny,
you know why I have no memory of this, because when Lenny was doing his thing, I was nowhere to be found. I was in Lanzarote. I was in on one of the islands in the Canary Islands, trying to see a meteor shower. In fact, I led a tour to Lanzarote in mid-November of 1999, and so I was out of touch with the weather, and I don't even remember this storm. That's funny. Wrong way Lenny.
It actually intensified. It actually intensified to almost to a Cat 5. It got to 155 miles an hour when it was positioned 21 miles south of St. Croix, and then it gradually weakened after that as it moved eastward. But the a lot of impact on the Central Caribbean, the Virgin Islands, the Northern Leewards, St. Barton, St. Bartholomew, the Dutch Antilles, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, Guadeloupe, even. Anyway, I just wanted to see. Due to its effects, the name Lenny was retired and will never be used, and will never again be used. The name was replaced by Lee in the 2005 hurricane season.
And guess what? 6 years later, when Lee came around right after Irene, that storm did a number on our area. We were just recovering from all the rain from Irene, and then here came hurricane, or the remnants of hurricane, or by then tropical storm Lee, which dumped another 4 or 5 inches on top of us. The last thing that we needed, but that storm made its mark here too in 2011.
Yes, it did. Okay, we're done. I don't know about you, but I'm tired. You said you were tired before the show started. And so was I.
Yes, I was tired. Yeah, Tom Cortino making up a bringing up names now. Pat Pagano.
Oh, let's not go down this road, will you?
Bob Harris, Dr. Bob Harris. One night we'll have to talk about that, but he was on WPIX 11, Bob Harris, for a good number of years. Nice guy. I still stay in touch with Bob Harris. He's down in Florida now, and
everybody's down in Florida now.
He's into his 80s. I think he's like 81, 82 now. All these people who we worship, Joe, when we were, just young bucks, now it's to see them all. And Frank Field is still alive, by the way, and he's in Florida.
God bless him.
I think Frank Field is something like 97 years old.
I think he just turned 98.
Good Lord.
Yep.
God bless him. He's a great guy. His son, that's another story. But anyway.
All right. No show tomorrow. We're usually off on Friday and Saturday, so unless the world comes to an end, we won't be back until maybe the volcano will erupt and there'll be a tsunami that'll move across the Atlantic and create beach property in Putnam Valley and
Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, a name dear, and it's Tom Cortino just put up another name near and dear to your heart.
There are several that are near and dear to my heart, but I did see. All right, never mind. That's all ancient history. Okay. So on that note, we should say good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's an incredibly wild situation.
Wild.
Yes,
it's
wild. All right. So we'll see everybody on Sunday. Thank you from Seiler, from Michael McGuire, and Steve LaPointe. All super chat hits tonight. And I think I may have. Oh no, there you go, Joe. I'm sorry. I thought I'd accidentally knocked you off the air, but I didn't. I hit the wrong button. So let me hit the right button. And let's go. There we go. Here we go. So we can properly say goodnight. And by the way, before we say goodnight, let me just really quick remind everybody of the sponsors of the Joe and Joe Weather Show: Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst. Don't forget, they have their open house next Tuesday. If you're a contractor, or if this is your business and you want to go there, you can RSVP by calling them at 631-957-5106 or go to their website, which is liholidaylighting.com, and Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town, especially when it comes to rock salt, because there's going to be a shortage, and they will have the best prices that you can find in the tri-state area, and the website there is omnitruevalue.com. So I don't know if you've got plans for the weekend. I don't, actually. So I'm just going to relax. I went for a 6-mile walk today in the park. My legs are killing me.
We're probably going to, sometime over the weekend, I think we're going to drain the water out of the almost obnoxiously large swimming pool. We're going to take finally, after 20 years, our above-ground pool has finally seen better days. And so we will, I think, at least move forward and at least take the water out. And we'll try to find somebody who can knock it all down in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
And that'll be that.
That will be that. All right. C'est la vie. See you guys on Sunday.
C'est la Gary, everyone.